Do you have a lot of elite charge TMs in your storage, but don't know how to use them? Well, today we'll be breaking down the best legacy charge moves in the game to use them on. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone. So last year, we released a guide with the best fast moves to use elite fast TMs on. A lot of you really enjoyed that guide, so now we're back with its follow-up, the best charge moves to use elite charge TMs on. We'll be breaking down some of the best and most impactful charge moves you can get in Go, so you can empty your supply of elite TMs if it happens to look like mine. Now, like our fast TM discussion, this will only include legacy charge moves, as you can only get these moves using elite TMs. So starting off our charge TM guide, I'd like to preface things by talking about Community Day moves. There are a lot, and I do mean a lot, of Comm Day legacy charge moves in the game. That said, I generally don't recommend using your elite TMs on these moves. Niantic occasionally provides opportunities to get them through evolution, whether it's the December Community Day wrap-up, World Championship celebrations, or another event like the Go Tour or Go Fest. So if you can help it, I recommend waiting for one of these opportunities to return. However, if you really want to use a Pokemon with a Comm Day Legacy charged move, or you already have them at their final evolution, it can still be worth burning an Elite Charge TM to get that move. So with that in mind, here's a graphic of some of the Comm Day Pokemon we think are most worthy of an Elite Charge TM. So with the Community Day moves out of the way, let's kick off our list with some PvP related charge moves, starting with Shadow Bone on Alolan Marowak. Now this Alolan Pokemon also has the powerful Shadow Ball in its arsenal, which can also perform well in the Great League. However, between the two, Shadow Bone is often the better option, being a strong 80 power move for only 45 energy. Plus, it also provides a chance to debuff your opponent's defense, so a nice little stat change effect along with its decent stats. Now, Chris TM'd his shiny Shadow Alolan Marowak when it was first released, and since then it has proved to be effective, especially with all of Alolan Marowak's moves being buffed across the past few seasons. Plus, it's also a great Pokemon in limited formats such as the Halloween and Summer Cups, so perhaps consider giving your own Alolan Marowak this move if you plan on using it. Now, another impressive candidate for the lower leagues is none other than Licky Licky with Body Slam. Despite this move receiving a nerf in a past update, Licky Licky has much more PvP promise now that it has Rollout as a fast move, and even with its nerf, Body Slam is still a spammy move that can bait shields and chip down an opponent's health as well. Now, along with Licky Licky, its pre-evolution Lickitung is another good candidate for this legacy move. The licking Pokemon has decent use in certain specialty cups, such as the Summer or Valentine's Cup. But between the two, the recent Season of Max's move updates definitely put Licky Licky on top. Plus, it's viable in both the Great and Ultra Leagues, so Lickitung's evolution has twice the viability. Now, keeping on the topic of Pokemon good in multiple leagues, Cresselia is another Pokemon that sees a lot of play in both the Great and Ultra Leagues. To be fair, it's definitely more common in the Ultra format, since its bulk is more prevalent than the Great League. However, the reason it's viable is because it gained the legacy move Grass Knot in 2020. Not only is Grass Knot Cresselia's cheapest charged move in its arsenal, but it also provides useful coverage against water and ground types such as Gastrodon, Feraligatr, and more. Now, while you could give up Grass Knot to run the double nuke moveset of Moonblast and Future Sight, I'd say Grass Knot Cresselia is more optimal for PvP. So if you have a good one without this grass move, it's definitely worth an elite charge TM. But moving on to our next picks, we have two Ultra League contenders that share a move, being Cobalion and Virizion with Sacred Sword. Now these two legendaries had a lot of potential with their debut, however their debut movesets left them mediocre. With the addition of Sacred Sword, their viability got better, but it still wasn't enough. But after getting the fast move Double Kick in 2022, these two Swords of Justice have become great options in the Ultra format. Now, I will say between the two, Virizion can perform well without Sacred Sword, running the equally cheap Leaf Blade alongside Stone Edge, but when it comes to Cobalion, this move is an absolute must. The next cheapest move in its arsenal is Iron Head, requiring 50 energy, which is greatly outclassed by Sacred Sword's meager 33. Plus, fighting is a better type than steel for PvP, so that's why Cobalion needs it for success. So between having this move and decent bulk to boot, both Cobalion and Virizion are really fun to use in the GBL, so Sacred Sword is another move worth an elite TM. So continuing our list, we have another legendary with lots of PvP potential, and that's Ho-Oh with Sacred Fire. This Johto legendary had the stats to be good in PvP, but its moveset wasn't quite up to snuff. Sure, it had access to Incinerate and Brave Bird, but Fire Blast really isn't the best for battle. Fast forward to the Johto Tour in 2022, and Ho-Oh finally got access to its signature move, Sacred Fire, and from then on, this legendary was an absolute monster in the Master League. Sacred Fire costs about half the energy Fire Blast needs, with a slight damage reduction of 10 less power, but it makes up for the decrease in strength with a 50% chance to debuff the opponent's attack, so a really strong trade-off in my opinion. Now if you're watching this before January 19th, this move can be obtained during the upcoming Shadow Ho-Oh raid event happening that day. So if you have a good Master League Ho-Oh, you can use a regular TM to give it this move, but in the event you missed out on this raid day, or got a good Ho-Oh for the Master League after this event, using an Elite Charge TM is definitely worth it. So next up, we have a legendary from the Kalos region with a really powerful charged move, and that's Yveltal with Oblivion Wing. This move was released alongside Xerneas' Geomancy in 2022, but this move was a bit different from Xerneas' fast move since Oblivion Wing is a charged move. Now in the review we posted around the debut of these moves, we said that Yveltal would see a boost in potential with Oblivion Wing, however it would be rather situational. There would be some matches where Oblivion Wing would be useful, while others would see Hurricane being preferred. But with that said, with Snarl's recent move update at the start of the season of Max, Yveltal became a regular contender in the Master League, and the charge moves that see the most play with this moveset are Dark Pulse and Oblivion Wing. Both of these moves require the same amount of energy to use, however Oblivion Wing has 5 more power than Dark Pulse. As such, it charges quickly with Snarl, then packs a punch unless your opponent resists it, but at that point, you can go with Dark Pulse giving you a lot of coverage for the same energy cost. Now moving on to our penultimate PvP pick, we're talking about a staple Master Leaguer with 2 moves, being Mewtwo with Psystrike and Shadow Ball. Mewtwo has always been an impressive Pokemon in Pokémon Go since it debuted in EX raids in 2017, and this was the only way to get one with Shadow Ball back in the day, which was its best move at the time. However, when it came to regular raids in 2019, it returned with Psystrike for the first time, and that was a game changer. Psystrike replaced Psychic in its moveset, giving it an even stronger Psychic attack for PvP and making Mewtwo an unrelenting force. Psystrike hits pretty hard against most Pokemon in the GBL, and even if it faces a Pokemon that resists Psychic moves, Shadow Ball usually makes up for that. In fact, the only type Mewtwo really struggles against is Dark, but anything else is easy pickings for it. Now Mewtwo is one of the few in our list that not only thrives in PvP, but also shines as a raid attacker. Both Shadow and regular Mewtwo are within the top 5 Psychic raid attackers in the game, as well as the top 4 Ghost attacker in its Shadow form, so it's really versatile across the board. Now Mewtwo has been available through multiple raid rotations since 2019, including its recent Shadow Weekend in March of 2024. Though few have actually included Psystrike or Shadow Ball, and it's unlikely that Mewtwo will return with these moves anytime soon. So if you want a Pokemon that's good for both raids and PvP, consider using 2 Elite TMs on Mewtwo for Psystrike and Shadow Ball. Now for the last PvP Legacy charged move we have on our list, we have a relatively recent addition with Double Iron Bash on Melmetal. This Steel-type move was added to Melmetal in 2023, and since then, it's done wonders for this Pokemon's performance. Before having Double Iron Bash, Melmetal only had access to Superpower, Rock Slide, Thunderbolt, and Flash Cannon, all of which are relatively expensive. But with this move, it now has a cheaper baiting option that also gets the stab bonus, so you can use a ton of Thunder Shocks to gain a bunch of energy, then use Double Iron Bash to hopefully bait a shield. Then you'll have lots of energy to use one of its more expensive moves, or take a chance at burning their second shield with a second Iron Bash. So if you have a good PvP Melmetal in your storage and want to make it optimal, I strongly recommend giving it Double Iron Bash before battling. And that wraps up our top picks for PvP Legacy moves, so let's shift gears to our list of the best moves for PvE. And starting things off, we have both our Primal Legendaries in Go, Primal Groudon with Precipice Blades, and Primal Kyogre with Origin Pulse. These 2 moves were released alongside the Primals during the Hoenn Tour in 2023, and since then, they've been the go-to moves for both these legendaries. Origin Pulse is better than Surf on Kyogre, and Precipice Blades overtook Groudon's Earthquake by a landslide. But even with Origin Pulse's meager lead, it's still necessary for Kyogre's best moveset. And of course, they get even better when they're Primal reverted, so I'd say both of these moves are worth an Elite Charge TM. Now for our next 2 Elite TM candidates, we've got 2 legendary dragons from the Unova region that got buff charge moves, Reshiram with Fusion Flare and Zekrom with Fusion Bolt. Both dragons got their exclusive moves during their 2022 raid rotations, which greatly bolstered their raid performance. Before that, Reshiram had Overheat and Zekrom had Wild Charge, both of which had their uses. However, once they got their signature moves, they were far significant upgrades to their predecessors. Now with the Unova Tour coming in February, there's a good chance these dragons will return with these moves in their arsenals, but if you happen to be watching this after the tour and have a good one of these without their signatures, perhaps consider using an Elite Charge TM to change that. For the next entry on our Elite Charge list, we're heading to the Sinnoh region for Giratina with Shadow Force. This 2022 exclusive move is a mixed bag when it comes to Giratina, as it doesn't really offer a performance boost to its altered form. Where it sees the most play, however, is in its raid performance with its origin form. With Shadow Force, Giratina is the 7th best Ghost-type attacker in the game, only behind Shadows, Megas, and Dawnwing's Necrozma. But where Giratina seems superior in this list is its bulk. Most of the higher rated attackers are glass cannons, so they'll end up going down in a few hits. Giratina is a bulky raid attacker, however, allowing it to hang on much longer than most. Not to mention most of the Pokemon above Giratina are pretty rare, and since we recently had Giratina in a raid rotation, there's a good chance that you have a good one in your storage that you can give this move. So keeping on the topic of Sinnoh's signature moves, we have Heatran with Magma Storm. The Lava Dome Pokemon received Magma Storm in 2023, which has been its go-to fire-type move since then. It hits pretty fast and deals a decent chunk of damage with each use. Now while this move was a great buff for regular Heatran's raid attacker status, it's the Shadow version that really burns bright with it. Magma Storm Shadow Heatran is the 3rd best raid attacker in Go, only behind Mega Charizard Y and Mega Blaziken. But while you can only have one of either of these in your team, you can have multiple Shadow Heatran if you had enough Super Radars saved up. So if you got a bunch of these when they were available, consider using Elite TMs to add this fiery Pokemon to your Fire Raid roster. Now moving on to our final PvE pick, we're going to be talking about the last Sword of Justice, being Terrakion with Sacred Sword. This rock and fighting type saw play as a rock type attacker when released, but not so much as a fighting type. It only had close combat as a fighting move when it debuted, which by itself isn't that great for raids. Then in the fall of 2022, all 3 Swords of Justice received Double Kick, which was a huge boost for them. Then finally when Terrakion returned to raids that same year, it came back with Sacred Sword, giving it the most optimal moveset. So optimal in fact that afterwards, it became the #1 fighting type attacker for 2 years, until the release of Mega Heracross and Lucario in 2024. But even then, you can still only have one of either of these in your party, whereas you can stack the rest of your team with Sacred Sword Terrakion. As such, this is one fighting type that's made all the difference in raids involving it, so you should strongly consider TMing one to bolster your fighting roster. And that concludes our guide of the best Elite Charge TM uses in Pokémon Go. We really hope this helps if you have a bulk supply of Elite Charge TMs in your bag, or if you just wanted to know some of the best choices if you only had a few. Also, if you missed our previous video for the best Elite Fast TM uses in Pokémon Go, we'll have a link to that guide pinned in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if it's your first time here. So until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.